actually been getting back a little bit more into historical romance. For several years, I was just burned out on the genre. I think because it was the first romance genre I read heavily, and I think I overdosed. So I'm glad that I can enjoy the genre once more in a more moderated manner. Sylvester, or the Wicked Uncle by Georgette Heyer. This is some early Regency romance from the 50s, and I gotta say I have a soft spot for Georgette Heyer and her characters. And the characters in this one, true to form, are fun, with witty banter lacing all the dialogue. Phoebe has secretly written a novel, a scandalous thing for a well-bred young woman of the time. She doesn't really know Sylvester, but is fascinated by how his eyebrows wing down, and decides that he'll do nicely as the Wicked Uncle in her novel. Unfortunately, she puts in a few too many details, and in her defense, some were purely made up on her part, but just had unfortunate parallels to his real life. He does have a nephew, but he's far from a wicked uncle. Not that society is going to believe that once the book comes out. Overall, this was a fun romp, but I do gotta say the change from him kinda loathing her to being madly in love with her needed a few more pages development for it to be really believable. Cause yeah, very sudden and felt a tad bit contrived. But what the heck, this was still fun. Kiss Me Annabel by Eloisa James. Eloisa James is one of my favorite historical romance authors. She's a romance writer by night, Shakespeare professor by day. But her books are set in the Regency era, not Shakespearean times. I went back into her vault and picked up a book from about 10 years ago. Annabel is a Scotswoman who is in London to snare a husband who will make sure she never has to live in the poverty she lived in while in Scotland. She is not about to marry a fellow Scotsman, even if he is super hot. Per usual, Eloisa James is amazing with characters. Her characterization is just the tops. But this gets significantly downgraded because of some very shady understanding of consent. No, very disappointing for me. The Taming of the Duke, Essex Sisters #3 by Eloisa James. This has been the Eloisa James series I've been working on lately. In this one, widowed Imogen decides to live a little, but is hampered by the overly watchful eye of her former guardian. Rafe, that former guardian, he's not in the running for that good time because he's a little too fond of the drink. Then, Rafe's long-lost brother shows up, and he looks just like him, but without the beer belly. Then, Rafe decides to get his life in order and quits drinking. Imogen makes a date with the long-lost brother version, but guess who goes on that mysterious date instead? You guessed it, the now cleaned up, Rafe. So the story is ridiculous, but I did like the fact that she took two rather unlikable characters from the earlier books and made them likable. I always think it's a neat trick when authors are able to do that. Okay, book 4, Pleasure of Pleasure, where we finally get to the story of Josie. Lovable, not skinny mini Josie, which this cover, no, she's supposed to be plus size. This is not plus size. The plus size thing is why everyone always loved her in the past books. Anyways, super annoying that they did this. I also think super annoying is the description on Goodreads, which is blatantly not what happens in the book at all. But all that aside, let's talk about the actual book. Josie is not making a splash in this season. Everyone is off doing other stuff, and the Earl of Maine is obsessed with his new French fiancé. Okay, there were points when I was like, really? Eloisa cavalierly glosses over some stuff because she really doesn't want to waste pages having to dig through it. But if you learn to not let that or the cover or the description get under your skin, the characters are lovely, and this book is a pleasure to read. I do love Eloisa, it's just the niggling things on this one that kind of got to me. So in my quest to find another historical Western romance author that I love as much as Joe Goodman, I read Whether Too Young by Marsha Lynn McClure. Young, beautiful Lark finds herself without shelter as winter looms. The Evans brothers take her on as their housekeeper, even though having a young, beautiful single woman as your housekeeper isn't really a done thing for two bachelors. Well, I am a sucker for a good, I'm destitute and all I want in life is somewhere warm to stay. That type of backstory, as it reminds you to appreciate the simple comforts of life. That was not enough to make me like this book. Really, I can sum it up in one sentence. It's the type of book that uses exclamation points. Enough said. So remember in my last historical romance video, I mentioned that I was on hold at the library for a Scott in the Dark? Well, I finally got it. Obviously, this was released August 2016. The Duke of Warnock is this Scottish guy who was so far removed from the dukedom, he was never supposed to get it. And once he does, all he wants to do is ignore that dukedom and stay in Scotland. This works until he learns that he has a ward he never knew about who has managed to get herself into a scandal involving a nude portrait. And this was pretty good. An enjoyable new effort from Sarah McLean. I look forward to next year's book. What a Rogue Desires, Reese Family Trilogy #2 by Carolyn Linden. This is just a slightly contrived storyline. There's this whole subgenre of Regency romance where the girl is some sort of thief and she steals something from Lord whoever, but he tracks her down and locks her in his house. It's a little like the fetish version of My Fair Lady. If you can't tell, not a big fan of this little subgenre. But if you have to have this premise, this one did it with engaging characters at least. What plots, cliche plots, get on your nerves that make you want to gnash your teeth? Oh, and if you want to hang out with me more, check out my Facebook page. I'm finally doing something with it, and I would like to know what you think. The link in the description below.